Nope, your clocks aren't wrong. They're not 5 minutes slow. We're actually on time this week. Amazing. Today is Friday. What's today, the 22nd of July? I had to check my computer for that one. It's 2022, by the way. If you're still writing 2021, you're probably in a hospital. Anyway, this is called an AMA. My name is Kevin Murcko. I'm CEO here at CoinMetro. AMA stands for Ask Me Anything. I think that's pretty simple. You ask, I answer, or try to answer. Some weeks are better than others. It's been a long one. I think all weeks have been long, especially in a quote unquote bear market. I'm going to close a few things here that I have open on my computer because I'm seeing a little bit of lag. Maybe it's just me, maybe not. But either way, I'm going to shut these bad boys down. Give me a second and I'll be right back with you. I mean, I'm not going anywhere. I'm still sitting here, but just want to get these things closed. Okay. Hopefully that does the trick. Let's see. Customary mic check. I'm sure somebody already probably told me my mic's all right or terrible or not working. All right, we're going to start. Lots of questions already rolled in, so let's start at the top. That usually makes most sense. Michael L. getting the gold medal this week for coming in first. First question. You mentioned that CoinMetro is in talks with clients that make up the majority of the XCM sell wall. How are these talks going? Talks haven't started yet. Only one client was actually reached out to who removed those orders. And communication will start sometime mid next week to the rest of the larger holders of sell orders in the book. Looking at the list myself, I believe my assumption is that most of those orders are going to be removed from the book. I think some are placed there for a variety of different reasons, but I don't think there's any that necessarily need to be there at this current time. And obviously everybody wants the same thing. We want people to be able to sell XCM. Selling is not a crime, but the way the book is currently sitting, obviously it's not necessarily helping anyone sell. And thus, well, we want to help the book reactivate, reignite. And that's one of the steps out of many. You also spoke about direct, indirect measures to reduce sell pressure on XCM and to strengthen the buy side of the book. Could you elaborate on that? I won't go into too much elaboration on that. I won't elaborate too much. Elaboration, that's probably a word. It sounds ridiculous. So maybe it isn't a word. I don't have a dictionary in front of me, but I do have a computer. That was a pretty old man thing to say. My point is to say that I'm not going to elaborate on exactly what we're planning to do. However, some of these things have been planned for a long time, and simply now is a bit of a catalyst to get them out of the door. And that's going to include, like you said, incentives to get in on the buy side, but also disincentivize people to get on the sell side. And that's, again, indirect and direct. So you already kind of hit the nail on the head. You answered your question for yourself because I'm not really ready to go into more major details. But next week, we will release a few of these measures. And next week on Friday, we're going to talk about them. And then the weeks preceding that, or preceding that, we will end up releasing more of these little featurettes and or changes, and we will discuss them as they come out. Good morning, Kevin. I listened to your AMA with Cadex and Mach. Is there plans to work together with them? Well, as everybody knows, I guess most people know, maybe not everybody, but most people probably sitting in here know the little bit of history that exists, a lot of history that exists with Kadena and CoinMetro, and then the less amount of history that exists between CoinMetro and Cadex, and what transpired with Cadex and their public sale, their private sale and their public sale. There was some backlash. There was an explanation. Some people didn't like that explanation. For now, we are focused on helping Kadena build out the Kadena ecosystem in any way, shape, or form we can. Now, obviously, as I said inside of that Twitter space, if you were listening, we want to work with more Kadena assets. Now, that doesn't mean we list everything. I don't want to create what has existed in traditional finance forever, which is basically an old boys club, right? I know you, you know me, so I'm going to go ahead and do whatever you ask me to do because we're buddies. And that's not how this is going to work. So every single project needs to pass on its own merit. Now, does that mean we will or won't work with Cadex? Not necessarily for now, or at least up until now. We haven't had any direct partnership with Cadex, but we have been in many conversations that include Cadex, Kadena, and other supporters and or other projects building on Kadena like Mach. So I wouldn't close the door entirely because I think no matter what you may feel at any one point in your life, whether that's personal or business, that absolutely doesn't mean that can't change. So for right now, we haven't done anything. That doesn't mean we won't do anything in the future. Things can change, but we are looking to be supportive of the Kadena ecosystem as we have been up to this point. Hey, Kevin, any updates on when KDA staking might reopen? Not yet. We actually have a pending Slack conversation with our friends at Kadena to figure out whether or not it has actually stopped, because the information we had was that it was a year. That year has ended. Now we're just looking for confirmation and also trying to get some more information about what their plans are for KDA bonding. Is there anything the European middle class can do to protect against the impeding currency and banking crisis headed our way? And what are the implications of such crisis on people with mortgages? Well, I'll start at the end. Mortgages. Well, if you have an adjustable rate mortgage, what we like to call an ARM in the industry, because we're so smart, that's just an abbreviation. That's just a acronym, ARM. Anyway, so if you do have an ARM, an adjustable rate mortgage, yeah, you're gonna feel some hurt, because obviously I don't think. Look, there's been. I actually saw a thread. I think it was Dread Bongo put a thread up and said, they're either going to go into continue with quantitative tightening, or they're going to go back to quantitative easing, meaning they're either going to raise interest rates or print a ton of money. There is a third option, which I would say in many ways might be worse short term, and that's doing nothing. And the government's pretty good at doing nothing. In fact, all governments are pretty good at doing nothing. I would say if you made a list of 5 things governments are good at, doing nothing is up there. Maybe number 2, might be number 1 actually for some governments. Number 1 or number 2, if that one isn't it, is doing something wrong, or not understanding what they're doing. I mean, I guess if this, anybody from the U.S., you guys ever see Family Feud when you were a kid? I think it's still on actually. I would never watch it as an adult, but when I was a kid, Family Feud, we asked the top 100, blah, 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 this question. You're supposed to figure out what the answers are. Anyway, if this was on Family Feud, not doing anything might be number 1, could win the game for you. So if you have an adjustable rate, you're going to be hurting because more than likely, whether it happens now or in the future, rates are going to rise. So if you're not ready for that interest rate rise, and most people don't realize how even a 50 basis point interest rate rise can affect them on a mortgage, especially if you're only a couple of years deep in that mortgage. That can raise the amount of money you end up spending on your house by hundreds of thousands. Unfortunately, there's not really a great way to mitigate that unless you have your euros, your dollars, whatever. Here we're talking about Europe in particular, in some type of hedge against inflation. But to be honest, with the real inflation that's affecting Europe right now, I mean, I think Estonia is the highest right now in terms of reported inflation. 21% was the last number I saw. It's not 21%. It's higher, and it's higher across the rest of the world. Governments use a pretty hanky formula to calculate inflation. It's like, oh, well, gas is really expensive, energy is expensive, food's expensive. What hasn't gone up in price? I don't know, ramen noodles. All right, let's throw that into the equation. Let's knock off a few, percentage points. Not that they put ramen noodles, but have you noticed? No, what is it? Is it Arizona iced tea? Somehow Arizona iced tea in the past 30 years has always been 99 cents. And the can is aluminum and it's big. So, yeah. That would add kind of fodder to my dad's argument that inflation isn't real and companies just want to make more money. Shout out to my dad. Currency and banking crisis headed away. So, the good thing is that this is a macro crisis, meaning it's not just Europe. The bad thing is Europe has some issues that the rest of the world don't face necessarily as direct as Europe does. However, if those issues will continue is a question. How long they will continue is a question. There's also the narrative problem. If you haven't known, nobody's told you yet, mainstream media, for the most part, tells narratives that aren't usually 100% factual. So do governments. So do people. I mean, we can't blame them. At the end of the day, all this is just a people problem, really. In terms of what you can do to protect against it, unfortunately, I was about to talk about hedging, right? In normal circumstances, you would find something that can hedge your risk, meaning the euro is going to go down. Let me buy some dollars. And well, right now that would have worked. If you bought some dollars at the beginning of the year, you'd be up 12, 13% on your money. Well, on your, on paper money, you'd be still losing if you're in Estonia about 9%, but it's better than 21, I guess, on your buying power. The world is in a point right now, to be honest, where the normal things, the carry trade, hedging, etc., even real estate, the only thing I can tell you about real estate is rents aren't going to go down. So if you are in a mortgage, it may actually behoove you at some point to leave your house and rent it and scale down and rent a smaller house. That may sound crazy, but if you think about when you think about inflation, inflationary numbers generally are very volatile, right? So price of food, price of gas can move every 30 days, every 15 days, every week, because it's based on future price for the most part. But housing is also based on rents, and rents aren't going anywhere. The housing market could implode, and rents would still take 12 to 24 months to be readjusted. Why? Usually when you rent a place, you sign a contract. You know, you'd be hard pressed to find a landlord that comes and goes, well, I know that you told me you want to pay me €1,000 a month, but you know what? Let's make it 700. No, let's make it 1,200. Might be something more that you might hear. So unfortunately, in something like this, crypto can potentially be an option against inflation. The problem is if you're trying to hedge out inflation in the short term, you may actually lose money in the short term, and thus crypto might not be for you either. If you're looking to hedge inflation over a long period, history will tell you that crypto's done okay at that. In fact, even in the current bear market, had you been in the market for the last year or two, you're still up, meaning you're still beating inflation by a massive amount in most cases. However, if you got in at the beginning of this year, different story. And so, unfortunately, crypto isn't the type of market you can jump into with a short-term strategy. You'll see people all over Twitter telling you that they got short-term strategies and they're up, and I sold Bitcoin at this, and I leveraged bought this, whatever nonsense. Take all those with a grain of salt. Every single one of them. Most crypto influencers and YouTubers that I've met in real life have way less money in crypto than you think they do. Way less. I'm talking, if you think it's X, it's like X divided by X to the second power. I mean, that's what that amount of less. So are you familiar with Proton Chain and MetalPay? I think they're actually a solid project working on things that closely align with the CoinMetro ethos. I'm not, actually. Proton Chain, I think I might have come across, I guess MetalPay is probably built on Proton Chain. That would make sense. But no, I'm not actually familiar with them. If you want to DM me on Telegram at Kevin Murcko, DM me some information. I'll take a look. Hi, Kevin. There are many new assets on CoinMetro. That's true, Jaka. Are you still pursuing a gem policy on CoinMetro, or are you moved to mainstream mass coin acceptance? Well, I would say we will always pursue a quote unquote gem policy, but we will be listing more assets. I will also state, again, just like I said, don't listen to people on, crypto Twitter or YouTube. Don't just buy everything CoinMetro lists. I mean, this is me, the CEO, who obviously wants to make his business make money so that he can do other really cool stuff with his business and help more people. At the end of the day, though, don't just buy everything on CoinMetro because we list it. We're not going to be right 100% of the time. We will and have been wrong. Now, our track record up to this point is pretty good. But let's be realistic. In 2017, 18, and 19, the last time we saw a quote unquote 2017 was, and then 2018 was bear market. But then coming out of 2020, I would say, you could have thrown a dart at a dartboard. You could have thrown a dart at a dartboard and missed the dartboard entirely, and then just randomly picked something off a coin market cap and made money. That's it. It just depended on how long you held and when you sold, not necessarily when you bought or what you bought. So I don't mean to say that I think, we just threw darts at dartboards, because that's not what we did. We actually did due diligence, and that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to be right every time. No one is. So just want to throw that out there. Word to the wise. Pro tip, as the kids would say. How is DeFi decentralized if you have to lock money in a centralized platform? Hey, Bill. That is a unique question. I would start out by saying we don't advertise anything DeFi, because you're right. Decentralized finance should be, by definition, 100% decentralized. And in some ways, it's close. There's no such thing as pure decentralization. Understand that right from the get-go. From a technical standpoint, I don't think anything exists in this world that's truly decentralized. Now, if we take a step backward from that a little bit, if there's a protocol, something like Kadena, for example, and they have a bonding program, or something like Ether, who has a staking program, You can do that without going through a centralized platform, but you need to understand how to operate a node. You need to understand the risks. For instance, in Kadena bonding, if you don't do it right, you lose the bond. Gone. 50,000 KDA. Pooh, out the window. With Ether, you get penalized when your nodes are offline. So you can actually, theoretically, lose money. Now, you can go the somewhat almost decentralized route, just like you can go the decentralized route and use a decentralized exchange. You can go peer-to-peer. You can do all kinds of things that don't necessarily involve a large centralized piece of the ecosystem. But the vast majority of the public doesn't want to invest the time it takes to understand. And even when they understand, they may be not willing to take the risk that's involved with putting all that kind of necessary technical know-how on their own shoulders. Because if they lose, there's no one there to help them. And so you're right. What we do is not DeFi. Now, we may interact with decentralized protocols. I would call that a hybrid. And in my mind, that's where the entire world is headed. I think it's great that there's a choice. I think having a choice between fiat currency, CBDCs, even central bank issued digital currencies, as well as a privately issued choice of a currency and a privately or decentralized or DAO issued investment asset. I think that's amazing. And on the same token, pun intended, I think it's great that you have the choice between completely centralized, I'll say completely decentralized, even though I think it's a bit of a farce, and in the middle, a hybrid option. I do think because of regulation, because of oversight, hybrid is going to be the place where most people end up in the future. Meaning you can interact with these really cool decentralized things, but you don't have to take the personal risk. The not your keys, not your crypto kind of, saying that floats around the internet is mainly said by people who understand what private keys are, how to manage them, what the risk is. Those guys still get phished, though. They still get spearphished. They still lose their assets because they log into the wrong website. It's happened a myriad of times. Again, that's why I tell you don't trust it. Don't trust things you hear on YouTube or Twitter just because the guy who says it has a lot of followers or girl or whatever. Now, I'm not going down the gender road. We're going to be here. I'm going to have to list all the genders. I don't even know. I should have a list in my office of all the genders. It's a big list now, I think. I don't know. I'm going off topic. I better move on before YouTube just shuts off, our like live feed or something. Moving on. Bear market rally. Well, you could call this a correction. You could call it a bear market rally. You could call it a dead cat bounce. There's a lot of different things that people like to call moves like this. There's no fundamental reason why crypto should be doing well right now. Zero. So throw that out there. Understand that technicals don't move markets. Fundamentals do. Part of fundamentals, though, is hype. And in crypto, hype is probably one of the biggest fundamentals. And also greed and fear in any market. But in crypto, there's also this element of, oh my God, if I would have bought 10 seconds ago, I'd already be up 13 cents. Let me buy now, which means sheep follow sheep. Yeah. Also understand that there's more institutional money in crypto now. And I don't think it's the institutions buying, but they're damn well going to sell into you. I think everybody heard the news about Tesla sold, 75% of Bitcoin that they have on hand in the last quarter. And people were surprised. Like, oh no, Elon, he had diamond hands. No, Elon is the CEO of a company who has a fiduciary responsibility to his shareholders. And he's not a loon like Saylor is. I mean, Saylor's a loon. He's a loon. He's crazy. He's a crazy person. And I don't think he really does anything good for the Bitcoin space because he's a crazy person. I mean, that's it. And I say that legitimately. I'm sure he has like a plaque somewhere in his house that says, this man is legitimately crazy. It's signed by somebody. There's a stamp on it. It might even be dated. I haven't seen it myself. So I would be very cautious right now of doing anything on the long side, to be honest. Because fundamentally speaking, what has changed in the world in the last couple of weeks? I'll give you time. That's a Jeopardy song. You want the answer? Nothing. That's what's changed. In fact, anything that has changed is probably worse more than it was a few weeks ago. Gas prices went down by like 20 cents in Alabama. That doesn't mean Bitcoin should be worth 20% more. With the new marketing push, would it be a good idea to allow some team members, Ali, for example, to represent CoinMetro to the outside by doing a short video interview series or something similar? Hey, Michael. Well, if Oliver wants to jump in and do a video series, love to see it. In fact, I'd be all for that. And I think, well, actually, funny enough, in September, Oliver and myself will be traveling to the UK for media training. Media training. That should be fun. Was that? I don't know if that was sarcastic. But it should be fun, actually. So we're going to do some media training. CoinMetro will look. I don't necessarily want to be, nor do I think, as time goes on, I'm the best person to be running around the world all the time talking about CoinMetro. Oliver's got a lot to offer. Obviously, he's our product guy, and he knows more about our product than anybody in the building, myself included. And yes, you at some point will see our great friend Oliver in person on a camera somewhere. That I can assure you of. What are your plans this weekend? Good question. Nothing, actually. I don't have any plans. Zero. It's a nice day out today, so I'll probably try to go breathe some air at some point. And yeah, that's it. I kind of take it as it comes. Saturday and Sunday, no idea. Hey, Kevin. So probably a bit of work, to be honest. I know that's probably on the calendar. So Lago Finance created a bridge from Kadena to ERC20. What's your opinion on this? Do you believe this will be essential moving forward for Kadena, and is it safe? I can't comment on whether it's safe or not. Somebody brought this up last week, I think, and I hadn't really delved into it. We all know that bridges have had issues. Now, that doesn't mean this bridge will, but I'm not saying Kadena bridges, saying bridges in any protocol. At the end of the day, bridges are, I wouldn't say they're essential, but they are a major piece, especially with a protocol that's trying to kind of grow, because you want to be able to move liquidity across protocols. Obviously, a protocol like Ether has way more liquidity and way more dApps than Kadena currently does. This means that you're able then to move your Kadena into dApps on the Ethereum ecosystem and also gain some notoriety and some eyeballs. So I don't think it's essential, but it's a piece of what's needed, I think, in order to get Kadena on more people's radar. But I can't comment on Lago Finance's bridge specifically. Haven't used it, haven't looked at it. Hey, Kevin, anything new going on in the KYC, KYT space? I remember ages you explained it on a whiteboard, and it was interesting. Did I? I had a whiteboard? Anything new going on? There's always something new going on in the know your client, know your transaction space. Now, that's for sure, especially with what's going on in Ukraine, as well as, generally speaking, kind of the government's now willingness to look at crypto. Meaning, at some point, they were like, nothing's happening here. Then they were like, well, maybe something's happening here. Now they're pretty sure something's happening. And, they're playing the blame game a little bit. Like, oh, my God, did a volcano just erupt in Italy? That's crypto's fault. Uh-oh, an old gentleman got run over in Tokyo while walking home from a sushi store. That's crypto's fault. So we're in a bit of the crypto blame game again. We've been through this process with regulators around the world since crypto started, really, but especially since probably 2016 or so. And we're going down that road again. So there's always, I think, movement in that area. And obviously, the criminal element, for worse, I would think, but maybe for better for law enforcement, has also now started to put their eyes more and more on crypto. Not like creating fake crypto like OneCoin and trying to scam a billion people, but using crypto platforms and crypto in general to steal money from people that don't necessarily know what they're doing. So another caveat for everybody watching this week, and whoever watches this after this week, if someone contacts you and cold calls you and offers you the best investment opportunity of a lifetime, hang up immediately. It's not 9 times out of 10, it's 10 times out of 10. That's bullshit. And I'll tell you the real simple reason why. Smart people get caught up in these things all the time, and it's crazy. And it's the same reason why there's a line to buy Bitcoin at 60K and not 20. And it's simply that greed takes over, right? Your lizard brain starts going crazy thinking about all the stuff you could do with some additional money. But if someone has an investment strategy that can make them even 20% a year, never mind in a day or whatever nonsense these guys are trying to sell, they don't need your money. They don't need your money. They could start with €1 themselves, and they'd be the richest person in the fucking world within a year. So when someone cold calls you, cold emails you, don't respond. I'm telling you, it's not 90% of the time. It's every time bullshit. I've never had, in now 25 years, just about, doing anything in finance, had an email like that or a phone call that ever turned out to be legitimate. Not once. Not a single time. And you're not special. Sorry to tell you that, but you're not special. And trust me, 100% of the time, bullshit. Are the CM bonds I bought on Ignium and the equity I bought in February going to give me the same rights? Will equity show anytime on CoinMetro? So the CM bonds you bought on Ignium, at the end of the term, which I believe is at the end of this year, you have the option to turn them into equity or turn them into XCM. Both that equity and the equity purchased in February are B-class shares and have all the same rights as A-class shares other than voting. So to answer your question, yes. And to answer your second question, the goal at some point will to have those show on CoinMetro for sure. We don't have the necessary licensing to offer a order book like trading venue for securities at the time being. There is there was something in our roadmap even last year to get that done, and then things changed and we had to focus on licensing in other jurisdictions or a specific jurisdiction. But that is a goal. Hey, Kevin, why is XCM as collateral not allowed when there's an existing long short on XCM? With the price floor active, it should not pose additional risk because the price of XCM can only go up. That's a good question, Harold. I actually wasn't in the decision-making process on that very specific thing you're asking about. So I actually can't give you an answer to that. I can give you an assumption on my end, an assumption. We currently have limitations on how much XCM you can actually put or buy on margin. I think the initial idea might have been, well, if someone's already maxed out, they can't open a position anyway. And if they're not maxed out, well, they could just simply use any other collateral. I think that might be one assumption. The other side of that is, I think there is a compounding effect of risk, and that comes from not liquidity as in XCM liquidity, but general treasury liquidity risk. You have XCM put up as collateral used to buy XCM, which means you're using XCM, which right now we're not able to liquidate, obviously. And then we're giving you leverage to buy more XCM. When you buy that XCM, you're buying it from another client. They're getting euro, dollars, whatever. They're probably going to withdraw that money or use it to buy something else. So now we need to basically hold your XCM as collateral, give you 1.5x the credit, and they're going to go spend it elsewhere, which means it starts to cause treasury squeeze. And so that's another reason why, just in general, margin collateral, that's why it's limited to 35%. But if you already have exposure, it's doubling up on that exposure. And I think that's probably the reason why this was enforced. And you're right, and it does increase, but until it becomes liquid, that treasury issue still remains. And to be honest, even when it's liquid, that treasury issue remains until those positions are exited. And right now, the assumption is a margin long on XCM will be held for some time. It's not an in and out type of trade at this very moment. Hey, Kevin, I would love to be able to receive push notifications when a limit order has been filled. We are looking into those things actually actively right now. We will be adding many more push notifications to the product over the coming weeks and months. What qualifications would someone need to be a good candidate for CoinMetro's legal team? Would a background in capital markets law be helpful for that? How much job experience would you like to see? So, right on the legal team, there's a lot of facets of legal that we need to cover. Right, your basic kind of corporate law, your definitely capital markets is something that would be interesting. Then you have administrative stuff. You have actual legal, like court cases that sometimes will arise. So there's lots of different facets inside of that legal team. Everything you mentioned, capital markets, experience. Look, experience is always great, but experience is not necessarily the first thing we're going to look at. However, it doesn't hurt. So how much experience? I think the perfect candidate will probably have 3 to 5 years of some type of legal experience, but that doesn't necessarily disqualify you if you don't. So I would invite you to go to apply.workable.com/CoinMetro and have at it and submit an application. Let's go. Only 8 likes. Smash the like button. Thanks, Philippe. Yeah, smash, smash, smash. Again, don't smash it too hard because then you can't click it again. And then what are you going to do next week? You have to buy a new keyboard. That's what you're going to have to do. Because, hey, Bobby. So with new listings, is the airdrop family close to being implemented? Good question. The old airdrop family. So airdrop listings generally are going to fall in, as we grow, it's going to be more easy for us to negotiate that with the companies that we list. Also, it has to be a company that either came to us for a listing or we contacted and their team got in touch with us and we were able to work on, again, say, look, we have this airdrop family. We'd really like to get your assets some exposure. We would like some assets to distribute through the airdrop family. And then we want to work on this project with you. And a lot of the listings we're doing right now, because we're doing them in such rapid succession, just to kind of get up to status quo in terms of the slowness we had in the past to list things, we're not necessarily reaching out to teams on every single listing. And that's why you haven't seen that airdrop family pop up. Is there anything in the pipeline for the invest section of CoinMetro? Looks a bit sad right now. Well, we will require a crowdfunding license to operate that platform come November. We are in the process right now of putting all the documentation together to file for that. And that's why you haven't seen much focus on the invest section, but it will spring back to life once that license has been acquired. When DNA staking? Hey, Dennis, still haven't talked to our buddy David about DNA staking. I will be in Mexico, though, for a whole month starting from the next week. And thus, we're going to be on similar time zones. And I think we're finally going to be able to talk about this thing. What are your thoughts of Parsek's new Tsunami API release? Is CoinMetro planning on using it? Look, Tsunami, if somebody doesn't know, right, what Tsunami basically is, Parsec has always been about gathering data on chain and allowing you to utilize that data. Now, chains have lots of data, right? And so the speed at which you can acquire that data, especially if you're looking at like mempool data, you need it quick. And if you were looking at data that happened in the first year of Ethereum, for example, you got to just go through a lot of data, and that requires either you to store that data, et cetera. So Tsunami just basically gets all that data and makes it readily available in real time. So it's basically Parsec and Parsicle on steroids. Whether are we planning to use it? I think as we build out specific products and as we get more deeper into licenses and different regulated territories and countries, et cetera, around the world, I think there will be a requirement to have this in our ecosystem so that when we get requests from certain regulators, we're able to access that data quickly. It also could potentially help us build vehicles by which we can give alerts to clients. And we've also been in discussion about, let's say, unique perks to our tiering system, and it may also be able to assist us there. So I guess the answer to that question is, I believe so, but I can't really give you a timeline as of right now. Will staking offer compounding in the future? I think on certain protocols, yes, absolutely. If you're talking about XCM staking in general, that would really depend on, I think that there's no reason it couldn't happen. There's no reason it shouldn't happen, but we do need to have it monetized, meaning we need to be able to make money on that staked XCM. If you eat up the XCM sell wall, I'm okay with you shaving. I'm glad you are. I'm not sure that my wife would be all that ecstatic about that. Shaving, she'd be great. She'd be all over that one. That sell wall will be, mark my words on that one. Kevin cheated a little on his shaving bit. Next time we should go also forbid trimming. Yeah. Well, I don't see that as cheating, man. Come on, Harold. I know you well enough to know that you're a man of, let me see, how can I put this? There's a word I'm looking for here. Maybe somebody's going to type it. Semantics. You are a man of semantics. No cheating. Definitely said I wasn't going to shave, and I haven't. But yeah, I trimmed. I did trim. Not shaving, though. The court documents regarding the Coinbase insider case mention that LCX token could be considered security due to their marketing. How can this classification be avoided for XCM? Well, look, I don't want to beat the "I told you so" drum, but since it's LCX, fuck them, right? I'll beat the "I told you so" drum. They're a bunch of dickheads anyway. I hope no kids are watching. I don't know why any kids would watch my show anyway, but don't go around saying "dickhead kids" because You got to wait till like you're at least 18. Then you can say it. You can just scream dickhead down the street if you want once you're 18. You probably won't get a job and people hate you, but you could do it. Your parents won't say anything, or they might. But you don't have to listen to them then because you're 18. Anyway, terrible parenting advice all the way around there. Please don't listen to me. So I talked about a million times. People would always say, why don't you go out and get XCM listed on a bunch of other exchanges? That makes perfect sense. If it was me, if I was sitting in your chair, I'd get XCM listed everywhere. And what did I always say? Well, if we do that, that's pretty easily to be construed as a security. Simple as that. That little thing. And well, there you go. XRP got hit with a very similar inside the documentation if you read on the XRP case. And now they're targeting a few other assets. Well, the crazy thing here, and I tweeted about this, check out my Twitter feed at Kevin Murcko. You can see the tweet. Somebody posted a letter that they wrote, and I believe this woman is involved with the SEC. I don't remember the woman's name, but it wasn't like Esther Pierce or anything. Anyway, she wrote a letter because the CTFC is the one who is basically sitting and bringing those charges against Coinbase, or not Coinbase, but the Coinbase employee. And they're saying they're securities when the CFTC doesn't govern what a security is. Right? That's the SEC's job. So they're basically stepping over a line saying these inherent utility tokens are securities. And while they may be correct, it's not their place to say it. And so there definitely needs to be smarter regulation in the US. You have all those different 3, 4, 5, 6 letter agencies that just don't communicate to one another. And my response to that was just like as a when you have a seed company, when you're looking for seed funding, you don't really care who gives you that money, right? The guy next door, the blind guy with one arm who basically screams all day, and if he gives you money, you're going to take it. Seed money, man. You need to move fast. As you get to a certain place with your business, you want to find quote unquote smart money, people that will help you build the business, right? Not just give you money. And it's the same thing with regulation. When this was a very nascent industry 13 years ago, nobody really cared what the regulators were saying, right? Just trying to get stuff done. But as the market has matured and as the industry has matured, we need smart regulation, and we're not getting it because powers that be around the world and even in the same country, different agencies don't bother communicating with one another. So how can that be avoided for XCM? XCM is a utility token. I don't care what test you put it through. And we haven't done, well, I would plain enough, we haven't done marketing really. I mean, you guys have been complaining about that for 4 years, right? So the fact that we haven't done a substantial amount of marketing, but on top of that we haven't gone out and specifically marketed XCM to any other exchanges, any other platforms, and or any other service providers like we would if it was a security. So I think we have avoided that. Now, that doesn't mean that, some other body in the US that doesn't regulate securities, like, I don't know, the Better Business Bureau of Danbury, Wisconsin, could come out and say that we're a security. But who cares? In fact, in this case, the CFTC saying that they're securities is meaningless. Can you shill Noah to us? Oh, Noah, yeah, I can't actually. So the little breakdown. Now, I did look. I actually read the blog post that was created for these listings. While I did take a look at some documentation because we did a risk assessment internally, and I definitely put my 2 cents into the risk assessment, I didn't fully dig in. I wasn't, there was a listing committee. I didn't sit in on every meeting. So I can shill it to you once I go back through the documentation, but I can't shill it to you right now, unfortunately. However, I remember going through the documentation, especially from a risk angle, and nothing, no bad boxes were checked in terms of risk, i.e. this is a security, i.e. The team is, red flagged, etc. Would it make sense to offer XCM pairs with other listed assets? I think it will, and I maybe think it does, especially with some of the changes that we're going to be doing to try and incentivize the buy side and disincentivize the sell side. This potentially could be one of them. Why would CM facilitate OTC XCM transactions that were lower than the floor price and circumvent the book? Okay, yeah, not exceptional cases. Yeah, I was going to mention the exceptional case. As far as I know, there's only been 2 or potentially 3 OTC deals that have been facilitated. I'm not a fan of them, so I'll come right out and say that. I am not a fan of us facilitating OTC deals for XCM given the current state of the book. And I made that clear to someone else in the organization yesterday. I wasn't in any meeting, nor did I get any information internally about us specifically facilitating XCM OTC deals. I do think there are more than one exception. For example, a very easy one would be a long-time XCM holder that simply has a need and have no other way to potentially get the funds they need for whatever need they have. And I think, if I think about the vision and mission and the kind of ethos we want for our company, I think it makes sense that we try and help. Now, doing this on a regular basis to me doesn't make any sense for the same reasons why you probably think it doesn't make any sense. So we will see how that works moving forward. I have no problem with OTCs in general. I have no problem with clients doing OTCs. I don't really even have a problem with occasionally facilitating them depending on the circumstances. I do think, though, it leaves a bit of a bad taste in one's mouth when the company now is focused on making sure that book becomes reignited. And on the other side, we're assisting potentially in the exact opposite. Bought any Credo lately? Chart looks like garbage, but I'm still buying. I haven't bought any lately, but that doesn't mean I won't. Good afternoon, Kevin. Hope all well. Appreciate the regularity of these AMAs. A good look for CoinMetro. I appreciate you coming here and posting some. Hey, Kev, got some blunt questions for you. Awesome. How can you be so sure new users will come? Don't active exchange users and trade volume shrink in bear markets? What are the CM growth projects? Not really blunt. These are softballs, man. You got anything harder than this? Here we go. So how can you be so sure new users will come? Well, let's look at this from a very pragmatic point of view. Pragmatic. Ready? During the last bull market, we did get clients like everybody else did because it's a bull market, and you didn't have to do anything really to get clients. In fact, we got percentage-wise ratio, comparatively speaking, to what amount of clients we had. We did very well, just like everybody else. That was advertising and or was not. Normally in bear markets, the big boys pull back spending because they spend substantial amounts of money on acquiring new clients because they churn clients, because they don't have great support, because they don't have a lot of transparency, and because generally speaking, and maybe they did, but as they grow, they tend to lose a little bit of that uniqueness because they stop focusing on it. Right now in the bear market, there's not much to compete with, to be honest, in comparatively speaking to what you're competing with in a bull market. There are always going to be people who want to come into crypto. And the fact that there's less advertising being pushed and lots of bad narrative being pushed about all the big players, it's not a bad time for the best, the second option, but the best option. When I say that, what I mean is every financial market has, the big boys. If you live in the U.S., and of course I grew up there, so I could give some Mexican examples as well. I could even give European examples. Let's give one of each. If you're in the U.S. and let's say you bank at Wells Fargo, right? Let's say you're in Mexico and you bank at Banamex. Let's say you're in Europe and you're at Commerce Bank, okay? You went there because they're one of the biggest banks in the region, and you happen to bank with them because, well, they're the biggest. Wells Fargo has been selling your information, and you know it. They were taking out loans in people's names without even telling them, all this crazy shit. Banamex, well, I don't even know where to start with Banamex, but let's just say worst customer service I've ever had at any bank, terrible fees, absolutely slow at everything they do, connected to one of the worst financial institutions in the world, Citibank, list goes on. Commerce Bank, slow, expensive, doesn't even link up to some of the faster payment mechanisms around Europe, et cetera. Now, you might still be a client there because they're big, right? But generally what happens? A secondary player comes along who's smaller, but offers something that you can't get where you currently are, and you leave. Now, you can say let's say in Europe, a good example of that might even be something like Revolut. Revolut's customer support sucks, by the way, but they are cheaper and they're faster. And so they might not be the guys somebody starts their banking history with, but they may end it with them. And I think CoinMetro is pretty well suited to be, you can go to Coinbase first, you can go to Binance first, have at it. You don't know what you're doing. So, go through their educational stuff and play around with the platform, lose a bit of money, try to get some support, don't get it. And then go, what do I do now? I don't know what I'm doing. Do a Google search, find CoinMetro, you're in. So I think we are very well suited to grow in the bear market. Second, don't active exchange users and trade volume shrink. Not necessarily. Active can be passive as well, i.e. staking, Mars, all those great things. People are passive because they might not be actively buying or selling or trading, but they are active in the fact that we are making money because we make a portion of all those staking rewards. And in fact, that is going to become one of the biggest revenue generators in CoinMetro. And in Q4, it was 35% of our revenue. It has gone down since, but that's because asset prices, et cetera, have gone down. But as we start to ramp up additional clients, I can get active exchange users, active CoinMetro users, I believe will go up. Now, trade volumes for us, I think are going to go up as well. Why? Well, it's not like we started from a point of having 10 billion a day and now we're down to 3, and now we have to rebuild back up. Yes, we did have higher volumes in Q4, but we had higher volumes in Q4 based on less clients. More clients we get in, even if they're trading less volumes overall, will mean more volumes for the company. And what are our growth projections? Well, I can give you projections, but to be fair, I hate projections. I think every time someone asks me, what do you think the company is going to be in 5 years? I kind of feel like slapping them with a glove, like, you know, those scenes with the white glove, because I can make up anything I want. And to be honest, I'm skilled enough, I can probably justify it, but it still makes it bullshit. You know, I could throw some numbers in the air. You know, what number would you like to hear? I can tell you a number, and then I'll tell you why I think that number is accurate. And I can do it on the spot if you'd like me to. But at the end of the day, I kind of like you guys better than that. So I'm not going to do that. What I will say is we're starting from almost a beginning point. The difference is we're kind of starting from the beginning, but we have an extremely more mature infrastructure, an extremely better product suite, an extremely larger and more sophisticated team that's working around the clock to make sure that we're the best in the industry. Those things we didn't have a year or 2, 3 years ago. And so I think we are in an amazing position to see growth during the bear market. Plus, when you're making money and the support sucks, you might not complain. When you're losing money and the support sucks, you're complaining. Expecting new users to eat 6K of XCM for 5% exchange discount and 1.2x staking bonus on some illiquid asset. So this is a better question. Is optimistic at best? Is it not? Well, tiers will probably change, and the utility you're going to get from those tiers will absolutely change. And we're aware that for some people that might not hold enough value, but it's clear that for some it absolutely does, because there are people sitting at that level, and there are still people buying XCM to hit that level. I guarantee you that utility will change, and that will make that even more enticing to new buyers, and a myriad of other things as well. So yeah, I'm not saying you're wrong there, but obviously everything can always be better. And our focus right now, especially on XCM, is to make sure that that's the case. Media training is what UK politicians need. Not sure they have much to offer you. Glad y'all pushing more marketing though. Well, media training is just about, let's say you're in an interview and someone tries to drag you down a story you don't want to comment on. So you're right, some politicians are good at this. Some politicians are terrible at this. Come on, man. You know, so some politicians are really good at it, and that's what makes a good politician. But yeah, media training is about, keeping eye contact with the camera, being personable, being humble, explaining things, not speaking too fast, not speaking too slow, not moving your hands too much, but not sitting stoic, all that great stuff. Among other things, how to make sure that when you're in an interview, you dictate the interview and not the interview. Hey, Kevin, will we get the Flux airdrop when we stake on CoinMetro? Yes. Do you have examples of price floors during bear markets? You say it protects investors, but isn't selling low being able to sell at all? Real XCM price could be negative, lower than 10 cents. So what magic makes it worth 60 cents? See, these questions are good. I like these questions. The first couple were, softballs. I would say still these are still softballs. They're just like major league softballs. So they're not as fast and they're still pretty big. It's easy to hit them, but they're good, man. I like them. Thank you. So I think you need to look at the whole picture, right? We obviously have people that have supported us since the beginning. We also have people that haven't sold their XCM. The vast majority of XCM holders, by the way, aren't selling and never have. There's a very small percentage of the overall ownership that sits in the book. Those people that bought XCM and have sat on it through the spikes and through the downturns, etc. We want to be able to support that community. Now, the idea behind the initial raise obviously had nothing to do with the market going to shit or anything like that, because it hadn't yet happened. It was about making sure that as a product, XCM is a product. It's probably our most important product. And as a company that sells a product, we put a value behind that product. Now, that doesn't mean you can't go to a swap meet or wherever or some, shitty dollar store and find the same product for cheaper. That's possible. But this is our manufacturer's suggested retail price, and it's what we want to sell our asset for. It's where we believe the current value based on what is being offered as a utility sits for that asset. Simple as that. On the other side of it, we want to make sure that we retain value over time for the people that buy XCM. Remember that XCM is not and never will be a security, and it is not a speculative asset. That doesn't mean people don't speculate on it, but for us, it is not a speculative asset, which means there should be no expectation of liquidity. Now, I say that, and I'll say in the same kind of breath, I want there to be liquidity. But think about buying, and I'm going to go to the securities market, but think about buying smaller securities in smaller markets, meaning not your Dow Jones, not your Dow or your CAC or your FTSE, but in smaller markets like A Milan, for example. Sometimes those things can sit essentially at a price floor, illiquid for years. Now, that's not something I want to see for XCM, because we need XCM to be tradable based on the tokenomics of the company. But it's still a product. And the way we treat it needs to be like a product. We're not going to treat it as a speculative asset. And so the goal, when I talk about reducing sell side, increasing buy side, it's about increasing value of the product, and which thus decreases hopefully the willingness for people to sell it because it holds so much value. Simple as that. So I think if it was under 10 cents right now, if the expectation is that there'd be tons of buying because people would be excited, I doubt that. And I'll tell you why. I look at every other asset across the board, not just on CoinMetro, that has fallen 90%. I don't see a lot of enthusiastic buying. What I see is people scared. I see people pissed off. I see people talking about, I invested this much and now my portfolio looks like this. When you put money into a speculative market and a volatile one, you should not necessarily be thinking that it's going to be liquid. Those two things, historically speaking, usually don't come hand in hand. And I'll repeat, our goal is to make sure that it is. Because as a product and a piece of our overall tokenomics on the site, it behooves us to do so. But not necessarily because we want people to be able to trade speculatively and make money on the asset. Okay, back to that. Hi, Kevin. Much respect. What are the plans for CoinMetro's Flux staking program? Also, are you hiring beta testers or general back office support? We are definitely hiring support. We usually always are. Beta testers, QA, absolutely. I think there's two QA positions currently open on apply.workable.com/CoinMetro. And our plans, well, we might have to retool it a little bit because I think right now we're running it at a deficit. And obviously that means we can't offer any bonuses to Mars, our multi-asset staking reward. So we may have to retool it, but there probably will be news about that in the coming weeks. How does Tesla selling 70% of the BC for a loss affect the market, in your opinion? To be honest, it mostly affects just the psychology of the market. So people who thought that, oh, look, the people who use that narrative like, oh, look, all these big, Tesla and MicroStrategy and all these other guys, look at all the money they're throwing into crypto. It's because crypto's the next big thing, man. It's not going anywhere, and everybody supports us because it's so awesome and Bitcoin's amazing. I think that, put a little wind out of their sails. But it obviously didn't affect price. Not one bit. In fact, the news of it affected price more than the actual selling, I think, which is a great piece of news, by the way, because if this was, 5 years ago, somebody tried to sell that much BTC, it absolutely would have affected the price, and it probably would have went illiquid. Hi, Kevin. Since CM supports Polygon now, does that mean we can deposit USDC on the Polygon network? Not yet, but that is coming. Hi, Kevin. Does CoinMetro look at P2E and the whole GameFi niche? Gamification and getting deeper into these territories is definitely something on our radar, but we're not yet so active. Hi, Kevin and team. Hey, Dan. Nice to see you. Hi, Kevin. With all the carnage that happened in DeFi over the last few months, are you still bullish on Vesper? Well, I wasn't bullish on Vesper when we listed it. I don't own any, and I think I made that clear to everybody. Again, I'm not the buck stops here guy for listings. I may hate something, we may still list it. I may love something, we may never list it. So I'm not entirely bullish on Vesper as a token. I was bullish on the ability for us to use Vesper to create pools so that we could add passive income to other assets on the platform. However, the main person behind the Vesper initiative is no longer with the company. Thus, we haven't seen much movement. That doesn't mean we won't, though. It may make sense for us to reach back out to Vesper and see if there's some commitment there from their side so that we can actually do some of that. That would be good. Hi, Kevin. How do you compare yourself to the big boy exchanges in becoming not just a great amount of good projects with diversity in coins, but also being, okay, let me go back and read that again. How do you compare yourselves to the big boys, okay, in becoming not just a great amount of good projects with diversity, but with diversity in coins, but also being an easy fiat on-ramp? Well, I think we have one of the easiest fiat on-ramps for USD, Euro, and pounds in the world. And I think the fact that we actually don't list everything under the sun is amazing, because for most people, when they come in, they don't know what to buy. You know, their buddy says, oh, there's this thing called ASS token. ASS token. That's Australian sheep shepherd, in case you weren't keeping up with the market. I actually had somebody call me 6 months ago or something and said, hey, man, some guy told me I should buy some ASS. And let's just say that I didn't really know what he meant, and the conversation was a bit weird for a few minutes. But Australian sheep shepherd, yeah, you should never buy that token. Don't ever buy that token. Point is that there's too much noise out there. So having some partner that can help you filter noise is an amazing thing. And most exchanges don't do that. Is Ignium broke, or are we going to make it? Ignium is looking for fundraising. So if you believe in Ignium and you have some cash that you're willing to throw in to help them reach their goals, amazing. I got some on the side that I'm willing to throw in. So yeah, you'd have to ask Ignium about their exact situation, because I haven't been necessarily active there. I am helping. I am putting the word out. In fact, I was going to mention it today right at the end, and we're just about at the end. So this question came in at a great time. Ignium is looking for investment. So if you are looking, I think they're doing something like almost similar to what we did with our convertible bond. It's basically a note. You're buying a note with a certain amount of interest over the course of the next year that can be at the end of it converted into equity at a discount. So yeah, if you're interested, I think Ignium with this pivot to NFTs and raising money in communities with NFTs, I think it's an amazing product. I'd love to see it continue to move forward. Hi, Kevin. Can you tell something about Luna Classic? I still have some, but there is no book anymore on CoinMetro, at least what I understand. I am new to crypto and only have a CoinMetro account. So Luna Classic, we stopped supporting it because basically the price went from like $100 US a token down to a nano piece of a cent. And because of that, we don't support it anymore. Obviously, if you do have Luna Classic, you can withdraw it off CoinMetro and trade it somewhere else. We do have an ethos here, and I think that what happened with Terra shows that we shouldn't be working with that company. And that's why we also didn't list their new asset either. If you have more questions on that, though, you can always tag me on Telegram at Kevin Murcko, or you can tweet me at Kevin Murcko, and I'll help you along. XCM is a risk asset. What happens if CM in the long term doesn't succeed, perhaps goes bankrupt? With a floor price, it's quite possible people will never have the chance to sell again. If that were to happen, i.e. bankruptcy and or the company ceases to exist, one, the asset can be traded on any decentralized protocol with no price floor. Two, we would remove the price floor as we were, if we were still operational after that announcement. That would be probably the only reason we would do so. But the great thing about crypto is it is decentralized. So yeah, you can go sell XCM anywhere you want if you create a pool for it. Will you be looking to utilize the D2FA feature Flux uses to improve security on CoinMetro? I'm very bullish on these decentralized features to improve security. We have looked, we have tentatively looked at D2FA, and I do believe we're always in the market for unique security solutions if they don't overcomplicate the journey for the user, and they are actually substantially better than other solutions we've already implemented. Is my lunacy safe on CM, or I'll eventually have to withdraw it? Yeah, it's safe, just like everything else on CoinMetro is safe. Obviously, if you want to sell it, you'd have to withdraw it. All right, everybody, I think that's the last question. If I missed your question, it wasn't on purpose. Please hit me up on Telegram at Kevin Murcko, or hit me up on Twitter at Kevin Murcko, and I'll answer your question. I'm also on Instagram at Kevin Murcko, and I'm now on TikTok, for fuck's sake. At Kevin Murcko. I did make a wager that if I get 5,000 TikTok followers, I would dance, meme a song, and point at weird words on the screen on TikTok. Fortunately, right now I only have 8 followers on TikTok, which means I probably will never have to sing and lip sync on TikTok. If you want to see me lip sync and dance on TikTok, 1, you're weird. 2, you better follow me, because if it doesn't get to 5,000, it's never going to happen. So have a good weekend, everybody. Thanks for being here. I don't know. Maybe you should look at charts this weekend. I'm not going to. I know that's a lie. I look at charts every 13 seconds, I think, unless I'm here with you guys. But spend time with friends and family. If you can't do it physically, do it virtually. Hopefully now you can pretty much do it physically. I think you can even cough on people again, which is amazing. You can sneeze and cough on people like you used to be able to, which is kind of amazing, because I kind of miss coughing on people. Not that it was a pastime of mine, but like you felt you had a cough in the last couple of years and you had to like hold it in because somebody might, think you're trying to kill little babies or something. Anyway, have a great weekend and spend time with friends and family, like I already said. XCM, guys, buy some XCM. There's only like 600,000 left at 60 cents. You guys should be able to knock that out over the weekend, right? I mean, I can count on you, right? Really? Hope so. See you guys here next Friday. Thanks for all the support as usual. We're doing everything we can here to make sure that we support you as much as you support us. Cheers, everybody.